And I want to welcome you guys to the ArtPlay Carpe Diem collection. This was a customer request and just basically a general feeling of wanting to document the everyday. You know, I feel like it's, in some ways we're kind of getting back to a sense of normalcy. So it's kind of not nice to kind of get back to recording those everyday photos. The palette is actually really quite extensive. Like when I was working with it, it felt very full-like, but I also, in Colorado here, everything's very, I don't know, very dead this time of year. We don't have a whole lot of greenery happening unless, you know, you've got the trees, the evergreen trees in the mountains. But so the browns and stuff sort of work. It kind of inspired me, you know, when I walk out by the reservoir, everything's sort of brown and blue and orange. But I also have used this collection to document beach layouts, and because it's very neutral, it also works really well with heritage pages. So I think it's like a really versatile collection for all sorts of travel pages, all sorts of everyday pages, and then photos from now, and then also going back into your past. So this is the main collection, of course. You guys have it because you guys are here. If you don't have it, you can get it at my store at Scraps, and I'll make sure I link that below the video when I go ahead and post this to the YouTube channel. So we have a really fun template here, which is kind of neat. Did something a little bit different with the frames, added in some really fun kind of distressed masks. So I'm going to make sure that I use those today so I can show you a different way of working, or different ways of working with these particular frames. And then they can also be used in conjunction with these photo blends, clipping masks here. And of course, they're not going to kind of show for me, but we have the photo blends clipping masks, which are layered. They're delivered in PSD and PNG format, so that you can work with them independently. And then we have 3 lots of word art. This is actually the word art that comes with the collection, but there are 2 additional sets of word art as part of the companion sets. And I included the script tees again, because I had so much fun with those in the last collection. The wooden words, which are always a favorite of mine. And then we have the word art and the beaded threads. And then the multimedia elements. These are always super fun because you can use them as kind of clustered elements. So you can use them as is, but you can also add the individual pieces and use them as individual elements, or create your own custom designs with those particular pieces. So that's the actual collection. And then with the companion sets, we have the artsy cards, which work really well with photo inspired series, or if you have any other kind of multi-photo templates that you like to work with, they work really well in filling up the different sort of grid light spots in those templates. The artsy transfers, of course, which are the layered versions of the transfers and overlays that you get with the ArtPlay palette. There is variation in the actual designs in those, so that there's not too much overlap if you decide to kind of get both. And then this is the bonus collection that you get. I usually include an additional artsy paper, some extra word art. There's an additional multimedia element, and then I give you 5 different layout options using the collection. And then this is word art number 2 and word art number 3. So this would be a great collection to actually create an entire album with, especially if you didn't want to add your own custom titles. You have enough titles and enough wood words to be able to kind of extend across an entire photo book or album project. And then these were also a request to do some of these kind of stitched bows and loops. So I'm going to go ahead and show you today a couple of ways that I like to use these sorts of stitching. Stitching is actually, alongside the paper textures, are 2 of my favorite products to work with. I find that stitching is a really easy way to add great texture into your designs. So I'm going to go ahead and close this out, and then maybe go ahead and take a look inside some of these folders, just so that we can kind of take a look. Of course, I like to group my ArtPlay palette with the artsy cards. So within the first folder, we have all of the different brushes that are available, lots of paper textures in this particular collection. I've also included some blending brushes, which are fun to work with. There's a very subtle paper texture here, some script, and art strokes and splatters. So again, a lot of my favorite sort of textures to work with. So I'm going to try and incorporate those into our layouts today. We have the elements, which of course coordinate with the papers. I love this little bird here. That's a favorite of mine. And I also really like this dried grass. And notice too that some of the elements are delivered in PSD format. This is so that I can provide the cast shadow to you. So you don't have to add that. And then of course I have those layers in a separate format. So if I go ahead and let's move you guys out the way. So if I drag this into my workspace, you can see if we have our layers panel open, window. So here's our layers panel. So you can see we have the grass layer and then the dried grass layer. So this allows you then to change the color of this grass shadow, and you can also change the opacity if you want to. And then also too, a favorite part is the artsy papers. So 9 different papers. There are 5 different solid papers that you can work and create your own designs using the transfers and overlays, all the artsy transfers. And then we have the 4 different paper designs that I have created for you. And you can use the photo blends then to blend those photos into the background. And then we have the artsy cards, of course. These are in both JPEG and PSD format. So either way, however you would like to work with them, you can do that. And then I also have the artsy transfers here. And again, these are actually only delivered in PSD format. And that's just to ensure that all of the integrity of all the blending modes are maintained. If I try to save the layers in PNG format, as I do with the multimedia files, then you end up losing those blending modes, and it kind of removes the convenience and the flexibility of these different files. So we have those going on here. And then what else do we have coming down here? We have the bonus collection, which is always fun. We have our 5th element here. It's not showing up today, so I'm going to have to click on that. But this is a layered file. And so these are actually delivered in separately because I don't have any blending modes applied to these layers. And so therefore it's feasible to be able to deliver those separately for those of you that are not working in Photoshop or Photoshop elements. And then the paper design is quite nice on this one. We'll probably try and use this one. It kind of has this heart shape, which is kind of fun. I like that. And then also the word art and then the layout ideas. And then we have the layered template, which I'm going to be working with shortly. And then the photo blends clipping masks, which of course, these are very much like the artsy transfers in that when you open them up, you'll see that you have the mask layer to which you can apply your photo. And then you have all of these other layers kind of surrounding that mask layer. And this allows you to kind of create some definition when you're blending your photos into the background. And what else do we have? So then lots of different word art. The word art has, again, the 4 different types. So we have the word art, we have the wood words, the script tees, the word transfers, and the beaded threads. So actually 5 different types of word art. And the word transfers and the word art, the sort of the black word art, that's also delivered in ABR format so that you can use it with either the paintbrush tool, or you can just drag and drop these elements into your workspace and then use them with your layout design. So can you use them as overlays or transfers as opposed to using them with the paintbrush tool. And then our multimedia documents, again, these are like the photo blends in that you have all of these different layers. So you can go in and you can change the visibility of these layers. You can go into hue and saturation, for example. You can change the color of some of these elements if you want to. And then you can also use these elements independently. So I might just, for example, want to use just this paper texture. And I can do that by turning off all of those other layers. And then I think that's it, other than the urban threads here. So we've got these great urban threads, lots of dimension on these with drop shadows. And these are also delivered with a ABR file. So we can use these again as the transparent PNG layers that we can drag and drop into our workspace. So if I wanted to drag this in like this, I could just move it around with the move tool from the tools panel, or I can go ahead and I can load this into my panel by opening up my brushes panel, which is window brushes, and then select the paintbrush tool. And then I go into the brushes file, grab the brushes file, drag it, and I like to just drag it directly over to the brushes panel. And then if I scroll all the way down to the bottom, you can see now that that folder appears. And if I open that folder, then you can see those brushes inside. So before I get started with creating the layouts, I always like to, if I remember, of course, to look at some of the layouts that the team have made. I find that's a really good way to kind of just show you all the different ways that the team have used this collection. So these are the team layouts. Of course, I have a lot more team layouts that my team have made, and you can find those in the gallery at Scraps. I just selected 15 because I feel like that's a good number that we can get through today, and I think it provides some really good ideas using the different digital designs in the collection. So this one is from Mikey, and she has used an artsy paper background. And I really like how she has taken the frame from the ArtPlay palette as her focal point. And then instead of placing the photo behind the frame or the slide, she's placed it on top, and then she's clipped it together with this word label. And then it looks like a little piece of paper or tape. I'm wondering if it's actually one of the pieces of paper from one of the multimedia documents. I'm not sure. But the way that she's placed the elements in between the photo and the frame, and then she has the elements also behind the frame, adds a lot of visual interest and gives the composition a lot of dimension. And then notice too how she has used it looks like a photo glow, but it could also be a transfer, and she's applied, it looks like a color burn or maybe a hard light blending mode to that to colorize her sepia photo. And then she's got a variety of different word art in the background here to provide context to her page. And then we have this image here. This one is from Adrienne, and I've selected this one, and I'll be demonstrating the deconstruct of this next week, next Monday in the AA Connect session. She has this black and white portrait that she has added a lot of texture to. This is where those ArtPlay palette brushes and some of the transfers come in to both contain the image and then just add visual interest. Notice how the curves of the brushes align with the different elements in her portrait. And then I also like how she's recolored the beads on the beaded threads to kind of give an inverse look. So instead of having the black characters on a white bead, she has a white character on a black bead. So I'm excited to share that one next Monday. And then she has this other piece here, which is very similar really in color, just a different photo and a different design. But again, I like how she's used the textures to add visual interest to the white areas or the white space of her design. So this outside area here is white space. But also if you look within the area of the focal point in the design, you've got areas of intense visual interest, and then you've got more white space in terms of this white area of her dress. And she's brought in more detail to that dress, superimposed it by adding those textures on top of the dress. So that's a really fun approach there. And then I also like how she's used these art strokes to connect both the top and the bottom parts of her focal point to that top and bottom portion of her layout design. These small little buttons are also a really nice touch and create repetition with the splatters that kind of move the eye along the layout design. This one is, I thought this was from Jerry, and it's because I could not see Charlene's signature at the bottom here because of the all the different boxes that I have at the bottom. But this one is by Charlene, and I like how she has, again, used the elements to ground her image. So it's sort of the placement of the elements prevents that appearance of the llama's head sort of just kind of floating and coming out from nowhere in the design. It sort of grounds it and gives the eye a focal point. So you've got that branch that comes in to kind of arc over the extension of that area here, and then this button, in, which is sort of the central point that draws the eye in. And then I really like the contrast of the various horizontal lines that are running through this, and they kind of stand in opposition to these vertical lines, which of course we know creates tension. And then she's also added in this barn brush, which was from a different collection a couple of months ago, into the background here to add a bit of context and to build up her composition. The next one is from, I don't know, actually, Charlene. I can see now her signature at the bottom. And I like how she has used the colors to kind of support the colors of her design. So just kind of a reminder that these collections always work really well with the photo inspired pages to support your designs. Just choose an ArtPlay palette or choose photos that have similar colors to those that are in the ArtPlay palettes. I always kind of think less about theme when working with ArtPlay palettes and more about color. So I think color is usually, when I'm personally looking for an ArtPlay palette to go with my photos, I'm always looking at colors and not worrying so much about theme, because theme can be introduced through brushes or through elements. It's really important to focus on the papers. And then we have another one here, actually. This is from Laura, and I like how she has used the same collection, just she's slightly changed the colors to support her images. You've got these very sort of bright oranges in her photos, and that is reflected in the artistry. So where Charlene may have toned this background down, Laura has used Photoshop to tone this up. And I also like how she's adjusted the template by removing some of the masks. So that's just a side there. And then this one was cool too, kind of in the same way that Mikey added the photo on top of her frame. Charlene has taken the multimedia element and she's placed it over the top of the frame too. I think traditionally we would be more inclined to place those elements behind the frame, but I think this kind of gives a blended look without actually blending the frame. And in a way, you're placing those elements over the top of the frame to give it a masked look. And I also like how she has used the tag to showcase her title. And then this one is from Diane. And I like how she's kind of created a bit of an extraction. It looks like this little fella here is kind of swinging out from behind those frames. And these are the frames that are from the template. So she's taken those and she's resized them and she's incorporated them into a new layout design. I also like how she's switched up some of the elements. So this piece here comes from the multimedia element that comes in the bonus, and she's kind of switched that up and she's added in a different type of thread and she's made it work for her in a different way. Also notice too the little tag down here, how she's customized that by clipping the little shoe element to that tag. And then we have this one, shows how Mikey has used those frames from the template to showcase some vintage memorabilia. This is obviously a story about her. This looks like Mikey, so I'm assuming it's her. And she's added in sort of an interview here. But I like how she's sort of played up the blues and the yellows and kind of used those as accents to her page. And then she's got the orange and the blue tones in the background there. Another way to use those frames, they seem to be quite popular in this particular collection. Again, placing elements, it seems to be a running theme, over the top of elements instead of placing them behind. This almost looks like a pocket. So she's used the multimedia elements to sort of give the impression of a pocket to which all of these other elements are sort of coming out. And I like how she took the lace from one of those multimedia elements and she placed it over the frame to add some texture and some visual interest to her photo. And then this one's really cool. This one's from Kathy. This is a lighthouse. It looks like she's added some filters to her lighthouse building. She's added in a blending mode. So that's affecting how the image is interacting with the artistry in the background. But it's really quite effective. You have all of these lines of paper textures and then the vertical nature of this actual lighthouse. And then that is also mirrored in the shape of the cluster here, and then the column of journaling. So you've got all of these sorts of vertical lines that are coming down, and then this one very strong kind of horizontal line. And I really like how she's used the glow here to light up the top of her lighthouse. And then this one is from Nancy, obviously a travel photo, but I like how she's used the textures and the multimedia files to bring dimension to the edges of her blended image and contain that image and just kind of add some real great depth. So lots of things going on here. We're adding dimension and we're creating intentional edges to her blended photo to support transitions. So she's added the text over this area where the photo blended naturally, but she's added these very strong dimensional pieces of multimedia documents to support or to emphasize where the edge of the photo sort of meets the background of the layout design. And then this one too is one by Mikey. It's funny, I actually requested this one again for next week. And it's going to be really interesting because this is a lift from one of Adrienne's layouts. First of all, she uses the artsy cards and the artsy transfers. And then when I requested it, she had actually not saved the original PSD file. She'd had to flatten it because the layers were so much. So she was really kind and she recreated it. And it's not exactly the same, but it's a really great way to showcase how to go ahead and recreate something if you didn't save it. So I thought that would be a fun kind of layout to show in the AA Connect. And then this one is fun because, of course, it's nothing like the colors that are in the collection. So it just goes to show how you can take the different elements in the collection and you can recolor them using the tools in Photoshop to support whatever photo that you're working with. So whereas I say, you know, select a ArtPlay palette that supports the colors in your photos, you also have the option to change the colors of your digital art supplies to support those photos as well. So it's kind of like you can either start with the photo and find the digital art supplies, or you can start with the digital art supplies and then find the photos. So whichever way you prefer, it gives you a lot of flexibility in your process and makes it a little bit more fun. And then this one from Olame, I thought this one was really clever too, the way she's used the branch to kind of hang this little bouncer here for this little guy. So she's obviously done an extraction and she's added a drop shadow layer style to create dimension. And I just think that that's just a really great touch. And then she's added in the multimedia files in the background to kind of create a bit of a white backdrop. So hopefully you enjoyed those layouts. I thought the team did a fantastic job. There are lots more layouts using this collection in the gallery at Scraps, and I'll make sure I drop that link down beneath the video when I post it as well. And I'm going to now move on to the creating part of this presentation. So I'm going to use the digital art supplies. Obviously, this is where I sort of end the video in the YouTube channel for most people. If you're not present here today, then in order to access the 3 layouts, then you have to have the collection. And then so I will place the link to the collection below if you want to see how I'm going to use the products to create these on the fly pages. So just as a reminder here, I have not planned any of these layouts. They are completely off the cuff. I usually come in with a couple of ideas on the different products I want to use, and maybe some ideas of how I want to use them, how I want to play with them. That is a big part of my process, is not just scrapbooking the photos, but enjoying the process. And so there is usually a product or two in the collection that I'm kind of interested in playing with and seeing what I can do.